What's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? It's good to see everyone. Thank you all for coming This will be my last live stream for Flora Week. And I am anxious to talk more about Flora. So I did post at the top of the chat, you guys, a couple of things for you. The fundraiser for the girls. The website is listed there. If you guys would like to donate, you can donate to, you can donate just cash, or you can actually purchase a t-shirt or sweatshirt to help the fundraiser for the girls and for Galen. So I wanted to make sure that's posted here. Also, at the top is where you can go to look at some very important documents regarding the Flora case on your own so that you can familiarize yourself with this case. A lot of people are aware of Flora, but they don't have a lot of the info. And so Miao Zedong has done a tremendous job of putting together all of the important documents and information on her subreddit on the Flora 4 girls in Reddit. But this particular website has everything as well. So for those who don't want to go to Reddit or don't have Reddit accounts, you can go there. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. Hey, Mindy Harris, good to see you. Hi, Jill. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Welcome, Lisa. How are you? Oh, yes. I always look forward to listening to Tech Death play. Just listening to his music is relaxing for me, too. Hey, Butterfly Kisses. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, Aries Dawn. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, Sarah. IAOS. How are you? Hey, Tech Death. How are you, my dear? So good to see you this evening. Sending you lots of love and huge hugs. Hey, Cammie. How are you? Hey, John. Good to see you, my dear. I hope you are well and the dog is doing well and your family. Hi, Sees Through All. How are you? Good to see you. I like that. He is a musical Renaissance man. He certainly is. Yes, Cammie, I couldn't agree more. Justice for Kiana, Kiara, Cariel, and Kayani. Hey, John, how are you? Tech Desk says, wow, John, what a nice thing to say about me. I'm sure that's what he's thinking. Hey, Dave, how are you, my dear? Good to see you. Hi, Ray. Good to see you. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Hey, Maria. How are you, my dear? Big hugs. Lots of love sent your way. It really is good to see all of you guys. Hey, Butterfly Kisses. I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. Hey, Sharon. Good to see you. Oh, Jerry, thank you. I'm doing really good. I'm feeling better. Still a little bit tired, but other than that, I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. And you're very kind. Hey, Louisa. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, Mandy. How are you? Good to see you. So there's a couple things that's going to happen. I'm going to talk about Flora, obviously, tonight. But where I'm going to also share a video. Actually, I'm going to share two videos that True Crime Maria made regarding Delphi. I'm going to do that probably towards the end of tonight's show. I think they're important videos and I want them shown. So I will be doing that later tonight. And if you haven't already subscribed to True Crime Maria's channel, please do so. She makes wonderful content, and there are some excellent videos that are out there that she's made on Delphi, and some other cases as well. So please check it out. Make sure that you also go check out Tech Death Hippie. He does the music that you hear in my intro, and at the end of my live stream. So he has done many different musics for me over the last year and a half almost now. And he's a wonderful musician. So please make sure that you check him out and subscribe and like so that his music can get more exposure. Hey, CJK, so good to see you. Glad that you're here with us. But yeah, we're wrapping up the end of Flora week. I think Flora has had some wonderful content made this week, and you really need to go look at it. Please keep an open mind. And one of the things, one of the people that I have recently found due to Flora, the Flora case, he's a creator. He's just getting started. I shared one of his live streams today on my community page. Most of you probably already know about him and are already following him. But if not, please make sure that you are going and subscribing to Coach Kev's channel, because he is a fireman in Pennsylvania, and this guy is spot on. Very professional. He reminds me a lot of Steve from True Crime Web, and also Ruckus, because he's very good at explaining things, and he uses moments to make them teachable and as he's talking. And I can very easily see how he would be a great mentor or leader when it comes to fires, because he knows how fires are supposed to be managed. And yeah, what a wonderful human being and a stand-up guy. I'm going to have to see if I can get him on a live stream with me, because I just think he's really doing a great job for Flora. And it is really important that we have these types of professionals working on this case and bringing light to it. I can't say enough about how important that is, to talk about the girls, to talk about what happened, to talk about all of the red flags around the case. Just like my title of my live stream says tonight, who stands around watching a house burn? I don't care if it's the middle of the night or not, knowing that they are hearing the screams of a mother and 4 children, and the 4 children are still inside the home. Who just stands around and watches that? Well, the question that I ask is big, because believe it or not, you guys, a lot of people stood around and watched. And Coach Kev brought up something in his live stream this morning when I watched it that was very compelling to me and really hit home with me. He was talking about many times over the years, when he has gone to fires, where, not just passerby, but neighbors would come out and actually grab garden hoses and try to assist in tamping down the fire. Neighbors were helpful. They didn't just stand around and they never just stood around and did nothing. So Flora is a different breed. It's all I can say. There is definitely something wrong here. Hey, Deb, how are you, my dear? I hope you're doing well this evening. So glad you're with us. Yeah, Maria, if you could grab Coach Kev's channel and drop it in the chat for me, please. I'm going to add him to Nightbot, so it'll automatically come up for us. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you? So good to see you. If you want to join me with this talk, you're welcome to use your invite. I think I have to send you a different one. Hold on a second. Let me do that. I'm going to send it to you in DM on Discord, Frank, if you want to come on. Just give me a minute. I got to find you. Okay, I posted it and pasted it to you there. And you're welcome to come on and be on with me if you'd like to do that. And thank you, Maria. Thank you so much for doing that for me. It just really, really bothers me. And, Coach Kev did such a good job this morning when he was talking about fires and how the response to this fire was just so unusual. He talks about the front porch and how the front porch roof of that house would be like a landing zone for firemen. They would bring equipment up there. They would use that as a base of operations, basically, for not only tamping down the fire, but getting people out. And he said they always like having that when they have a structure fire in a home that has multiple levels. They always look for one of those types of roofs where they can get up there and bring up equipment and stuff like that. And I thought it was really, really interesting to hear him say that, because they didn't do that in this fire. But I do know that the fire was taken care of quickly after they did start trying to put it out. It didn't take them long to get the fire under control, which in and of itself is sad, because they did get the fire put out quickly. Had they been that responsive in the very beginning, and as soon as the 911 call went out, they could have saved these girls. And I believe that in my heart. I just do. There's something wrong. Either dispatch screwed up and didn't get the calls dispatched well enough in the very beginning to get everybody out there, and that's why the volunteer firemen were late. Either that happened or something else happened. I know that from things that I've been hearing, people were really mad when Drew Yoder called out to have additional help from other counties. We can see that Camden, the city of Camden, was there because Dave Erskine is seen there in his fire gear. You see him in the videos of the fire scene. And in fact, Meow has a really good video on her channel right now about that, where it shows this bystander who is basically just kind of walking around, kind of looking at the back of the house, which is where the fire originated and was started. And then when Dave Erskine shows up on scene, it's like this person knows who he is because he goes running up to him for something. Really an interesting video. I know that there's a lot of video footage that has been, hold on a second, guys, that has been analyzed and looked at by a lot of different people, and you can interpret things differently. And I'm very well aware of that. But I agree with them that this is a very interesting person. And I think that everybody that was there that night, that was standing around watching, needs to be looked at if they haven't been. I don't know what law enforcement's up to with this case. I really just don't. There's just so much that just doesn't make sense. Even Coach Kev said that. He doesn't think that anything, as he put it, by watching what he saw, he didn't see necessary negligence for sure, but he saw things that just didn't make sense to him. He did bring up the fact that all fire departments have ladders. They all have ladders on their trucks except for one particular vehicle. I can't remember now which vehicle it was that he talked about, but all the trucks have ladders. Then you have the actual ladder truck that has the aerial ladder that goes way up. We've all seen them. They go up on the sides of high-rise buildings or whatever. But all the trucks carry ladders. We didn't see any ladders used, and it's still a very bad taste, left a very bad taste in my mouth in the very beginning when I first heard about Flora till now. I mean, I just don't understand why there is not that action happening, and how you can stand around on a street knowing children are dying inside of a burning house and do nothing. It does not make sense to me. It never will make sense to me. Is it scary? Yeah. Is a fire frightening? Yeah. I've lived here in my house for 27 years, and I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 years after we moved in, the house across the street from us caught on fire in the middle of the night. And their little boys actually started it by playing with a lighter. And sadly, the house burnt, but and had major damage, but thankfully the entire family was able to get out. They had 2 older girls that were my daughter's age, so we had them spend the night at our house because their house was a mess. There's no way they could go back into it, and it was a nightmare. But I can tell you by standing out there, and it was cold. It seems like these kinds of fires always happen at night in the cold, and it was wintertime, and it's just hard to fight fires in that environment. But I remember being frightened, but I can't even imagine standing there outside my home and listening to the sounds of screaming children as they're dying. And I have talked about this case so much to my family and my friends. They all know about Flora, and we've had many discussions about it. And I don't necessarily have a lot of macho men in my life, but I have some. And some are police officers, some are in the military, and so on and so forth. And they've all said the same thing. If they had been there, they could not have just stood outside and done nothing. And Barbara, that is an absolute true. The neighbor that called the homeowner was his cousin. And the fact that she called him and not 911 is huge. Now, not everybody is going to be up at that time of night to make phone calls. it's one of the things that we're going to look at, because I have the police report. We're going to go over that here in a minute of the fire. But one of the things that was interesting, because there was a lot of questions on this police report, and all the questions are answered no. And I think that this is really interesting, and I wanted you guys to actually see this. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many unanswered questions and things that just don't add up with how this fire was managed. Coach Kev talks about the fact that Adam Randall should never have had on oxygen. He should have never had on any kind of attire like that as a fire chief. His job is to manage the fire and basically tell everybody else where to go and what to do. And, you know, it's really important that fires are managed well, because if not, then you can have all sorts of injuries and even fatalities of firefighters, because you've got to know where they're at, what they're doing, and you need to be able to, you know, send them in what direction they need to go into this fire. And that's not what was going on. Adam Randall was in full turnout gear, and he was wearing oxygen that night. Or he had his oxygen tank and stuff on. So when the fire started, this is another interesting thing, but when the fire started in the home at 3:15 or whatever it was in the middle of the night, when Galen recognized that the house was on fire, the fire alarm upstairs in the upstairs attic apartment, and I'm just going to pull myself. I think I can do this. Hold on. I'm going to pull myself off of here for a second. I want you guys to just look at the house, because it's behind me. And I want you to look at this side of the house where my arrow is, because this is the apartment way up here at the top that had the little girl. There was a little girl and her mom, and I think a boyfriend maybe that lived there. But hold on a second. I'm going to remove myself so you guys can see it. So that's at the top of those stairs at that door. That's the other apartment. That apartment was created. Hey, Jinx, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. Oh, of course, Flora is one of my heartbreaking cases that just tears at my heart. And I've covered Flora for many, many years, and have followed it since day one. So yeah, no problem at all. I was very happy to be a part of it. So we talked about it a little bit the other night when I had Deb on and Steve from True Crime Web. We talked a little bit about how the house had been cut up to make these apartments and to make it into 2 apartments. And they had to put up walls to do this. And if that's not done according to code, you can create fire hazards. And I'm here to tell you, the way it sounds, and I've seen the floor layout of the house, so I know how it is, but when you go up the steps and then you have to go around a corner and go up some more steps to get to the girls, that is what Drew Yoder ran into when he first went into the house. He got disoriented because of all of the smoke. He hadn't been in there. He didn't know where he was going. So when he got to the top of the steps, he didn't know where to go, and he couldn't see. And it was, you know, choking smoke. He couldn't breathe. He had no turnout gear or any oxygen or anything on him when he first arrived. He just ran in the house. So, and Galen, what's so sad when you listen to the um what am I trying to say? The dash cam video, when you listen to the dash cam video, it is so upsetting to hear Galen screaming at him, telling them where to go, how to get to the girls. And she you can hear the absolute desperation and the absolute panic in this mother's voice. Please, just a few more feet is all you have to go to get to them. They're right there. And they did not. Um, they were not successful. They had to come back out of the house. And that's when Josh, or when I'm not positive. I'd have to go back and look at the time frame as when Josh Ayers arrived. But Josh Ayers arrived at the property, and was standing around watching this transpire as well. And Josh Ayers is the owner of the house. Birch Tree Holdings is the name of the company that is on the ownership papers, and Josh Ayer and Troy Holderman are the owners of this property. And yeah, Josh was called first before 911. Who knows why anyone would call the landlord about a fire and not the fire department? It makes no sense. That makes no sense. The use of no ladders makes no sense. That has bothered me since, like I said, the first time I heard of this crime, because when you look at the front of the house at Flora, on the left side of the house, upstairs is where the girls' bedrooms were. And you could have gotten to them with a ladder. According to Coach Kev, if they'd have gotten up on the roof of the porch, they could have gotten them there. I just don't understand. And the girls weren't sleeping, they were screaming. So it's not like they were asleep. I mean, sadly, these girls knew what was happening, and they were overcome by smoke. It is ultimately what took their lives, was smoke inhalation. And like I said, who stands around and watches a home burn down with a mother standing in the middle of the street screaming that her babies are inside it? What type of human beings do that? There's a lot going on here, guys. It's not just, a tragic accident. The windows were brand new. They had gotten all new windows and put all new windows in the house. So, I mean, I just don't get it. And then as we're going through and we're finding out more about Flora, we find out that Flora had 2 doors that entered this home and this structure that couldn't lock. So are we talking slumlords here, even though we're talking Flora, Indiana, which has a population like under, it's less than, I think it's less than 2,000, or close to 2,000. I know it's less than Delphi. I think between the 3 of them, they have between the 2 of them, they are about 5,000 is the population between Flora and Delphi. So you've got this really small community, and you've got this fire that's happened, and you don't think about these small communities and these small towns as having slumlords. But it makes you wonder about why this house wasn't in better condition. How can you rent a house to a single mom with 4 children under the age of 12 and know that there are 2 doors in the home that don't lock? I don't care where you live. That's just not safe. It's just not safe. And of course, it's not safe, as we've now learned, because somebody went into that home and started the fire. They used an accelerant in that back door to start the fire. So Mary brings up a good point here about, and we talked about this too. They spent well over $38,000 to keep this 911 tape from being heard. They fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, and there's got to be a reason for it. It's just unheard of. Even Coach Kev said, this just does not happen, you guys. 911 tapes are public domain. They are public. They're not ever supposed to be withheld. So what happened? Did something happen on that 911 tape that caused it to go from being something public domain to something as evidentiary? Was it because something happened with how the fire was late being attended to by the firemen? Was it because the dispatcher screwed up and didn't do what was supposed? What could keep that 911 tape from being released to the public? Well, we know that Robert Ives fought like hell to keep that tape from going public, and he was a dear and close friend to the fire chief, Adam Randall. We know that. So was he trying to protect them? Was he trying to protect his friends or his buddies or whatever that were on this volunteer fire department that may have been able to have been found culpable for what happened here? I don't know. None of us know why this has been done. It's like I said the other night, you guys, we don't know what they're doing. They keep telling everyone that's when they're asked about Flora, we're told that it is not a cold case, that they do have persons of interest, that they do have evidence, and that they are still investigating. Now, with that being said, let's look at something. I don't know why that's so small. Hold on a second, you guys. That's really small. I don't know why. Oh, that's the wrong screen. Sorry. Hold on. Present. Share screen. Window. Share. Let's still. Someday. Well, let's try this one. The window, the entire screen. I guess that's as good as it's going to get. Well, anyway, this is the Flora Fire Department police report. Let me see if I can make this bigger. I can't. I was afraid of that. Okay. So on this police report, tell me if you guys can see that better. This police report is talks about what happened. This is the report, the formal police report that the police officers gave that attended the fire. And they're saying that it happened, the time was 3:35 a.m. on Monday morning. So, and that was when it was reported. So it was reported at 3:35 a.m. on Monday morning at 103 East Columbia Street in Flora. Okay. And these are the list of the victims. We've got Kayana, Cariel, Kiara, and I don't know why this here is all blacked out, but it is. I'm assuming because it gives the address of Josh Dissinger, and all of his personal information. But he's also one of the people listed here because he was injured in this fire. But what I think is really interesting is right here. Look at where this says right here, you guys. Can you guys see this? Hold on. It says solvability. And then it says under solvability or next to it, there's a whole bunch of questions. Was there a witness to the crime? No. Was a suspect arrested? No. Is a suspect named? No. Can a suspect be located? No. Can a suspect be described? No. Can a suspect be identified? No. Is stolen property identifiable? No. Is there an unusual MO? No. Is a significant physical evidence present? No. Is this a major injury or sex crime? No. I would think it was a major injury. You have 4 dead children. Are there unique circumstances? No. Really? Is there a good possibility of solution? No. Officer Randall Larimore is who wrote this report. And we're going to go over this. On November 21st, 2016, at 3:35 hours a.m., the Carroll County Sheriff's Department Dispatch Center received a 911 call reporting a fire at 103 East Columbia Street. And the Flora Fire Department was dispatched, and Officer J. Dissinger, Flora Police Department, and Deputy S.D. Yoder, Carroll County Sheriff's Department, also responded. Deputy Yoder and Officer Dissinger entered the house in an attempt to reach 4 children in an upstairs bedroom. During the attempt, Deputy Yoder sustained burns to his hands and head, as well as possible internal burns. Officer Dissinger sustained smoke inhalation. Deputy Yoder was transported by Lifeline helicopter to St. Joseph Hospital, 700 Broadway in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Officer Dissinger was transported by Carroll County Emergency Ambulance Service to Indiana University Health Arnett Hospital in Lafayette, Indiana. Galen Rose of 103 East Columbia Street was able to get out of the house, but she was transported by Lifeline helicopter to Sidney and Lois Eskenazi Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is a burn unit. Rose's 4 daughters, Kiana Davis, Kiara Phillips, Cariel McDonald, and Kyani Welch, were unable to get out of the house and were found to be deceased. Carroll County Coroner J.D. Cree responded and took custody of the children's remains. Indiana State Fire Marshal's office was contacted, and Deputy Fire Marshal Dennis Randall responded. along with the Flora Fire Department, Delphi Fire Department, the Cutler Fire Department, the Camden Fire Department, and the Burlington Fire Department, responded and assisted in extinguishing the fire and or conducting the follow-up investigation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fire departments, a 5-alarm fire. At 0700 hours, I was contacted via radio by Sergeant J. Bishop, Flora Police Department, who had responded to the scene with the Delphi Fire Department requesting that I meet him at the scene and take custody of a brown in color lady's purse. He requested that I transport it to the Flora Police Department for safekeeping. At 8:15 hours, I was again contacted via radio and requested to meet with Deputy Fire Marshal Dennis Randall at the scene. I took possession from him a pinkish and white colored vinyl and metal wallet. The wallet contained $14.03 in United States currency, along with 2 identification cards issued to Galen Rose, 6 debit cards, 1 Hoosier Works card issued to Galen Rose, a business card, and 3 paper receipts. Randall also handed me $84 in United States currency that he said was laying on the kitchen table. I took possession of the items, returned to the Flora Police Department, where I completed a Flora Police Department property record and receipt form. The items were photographed and secured for safekeeping. On the evening of Wednesday, November 30th, 2016, at approximately 6 p.m., Officer Randall Larimore told me that Redacted had come to the Flora Police Department at approximately 3:43 p.m. and wanted to share information with him. All we know is that this was a female. Officer Larimore stated that this person wanted to report that she had picked up her son yesterday around noon and that he had told her information that she wanted to relay to law enforcement. She stated that someone had told her he had spoken to Troy Helderman, and Troy claimed he had stuffed newspapers into electrical receptacles in the past to start fires to collect insurance monies. Redacted stated she found this very disturbing, as Redacted told Redacted that Helderman possibly owned the residence at 103 East Columbia Street, where there had been a recent fatal fire. Officer Larimore asked this person if she had shared this information with anyone other than law enforcement, and she stated she had. Redacted stated she had also told this information to, and it's been redacted, who is an acquaintance of Tracy Rose, the grandfather who lost his grandchildren in the recent fatal fire. And Tracy Rose is also Galen's father. I informed Officer Larimore that I would relay the information to Indiana State Fire Marshal Investigator Dennis Randall, who happens to be the father of the fire chief, Adam Randall. It should be noted that the investigator, Randall, was tasked with the cause and origin investigation for the fire located at 103 East Columbia Street in Flora, Indiana. On the evening of Wednesday, November 30th at approximately 7 p.m., I made contact with Investigator Randall and advised him of the information that had been relayed to this agency. I further advised Randall that I would be supplementing the Flora Police Department incident report with the same information. Nothing further at this time. Sergeant James L. Bishop. More redacted. On Friday, December 2nd, 2016, at approximately 10:15 a.m., Jennifer Barnes came to the Flora Police Department for an interview. I led Jennifer to the interview room and activated the audio-video recorder. I explained to Jennifer she was not under arrest and was free to leave at any time. I asked Jennifer about her boyfriend, Corey Dean. Jennifer corrected me by saying Corey is her best friend, not her boyfriend. Jennifer stated Corey was currently incarcerated in Kentucky for non-payment of funds, and she was going to Kentucky today and post his bond. I asked Jennifer if she and Corey frequented Galen Rose's house. Jennifer said she and Corey did go to Galen's often. I asked Jennifer how her relationship was with Galen and how long she and Galen been friends. Jennifer told that she and Galen were best friends and have known each other since August of 2016. I asked Jennifer if Corey and Galen had a relationship that went beyond friendship, and Jennifer stated Corey and Galen are friends only. I asked Jennifer if Galen had a boyfriend. Jennifer said Galen's boyfriend was Colton Creasy. I asked Jennifer how long Galen and Colton had been boyfriend and girlfriend, and Jennifer told me since before she came back to Flora. I asked Jennifer why Colton and Galen had broken up, and Jennifer said she was not aware that they had broken up. I asked Jennifer if Galen had ever spoken to her about problems in her relationship with Colton. Jennifer told me that Galen really liked Colton and that they were good for each other. Jennifer added the only problem she could think of was maybe Colton's mother, Carolyn Creasy. Jennifer stated she used to date Colton until she found out she and Colton were related. Jennifer said Colton's mother used to call her frequently asking where Colton was and the things of that nature. Jennifer said Colton is a grown man and should be able to take care of himself without having his mom checking on him so much. I asked Jennifer if she had any problems with Colton while they were together or after the breakup. Jennifer told me she had never had a problem with Colton. Even when they broke up, things were fine. I asked Jennifer if Colton had ever had problems with any of his past girlfriends. Jennifer said not that she was aware of, unless it would be Bambi Folk, who Colton has a child with. Jennifer said she last knew Bambi did not live in Indiana. Jennifer told me the child Colton and Bambi have together would be approximately 7 years old. I asked Jennifer if she knew of anyone else that frequented or occasionally stopped by Galen's. Jennifer told me a girl she believed her name to be redacted stopped by once in a while, and Jennifer told me this person works at Parrots in Flora. I asked Jennifer if she knew this person's last name. Jennifer said she did not know the last name. Jennifer described redacted. I asked Jennifer if people came by to occasionally smoke marijuana. Jennifer said they did. I asked if anyone was ever upset or disgruntled because of any activities that would go on there, and Jennifer said no. I asked Jennifer if she knew Redacted, and Jennifer said Redacted is friends with Corey and they play video games together. She said Redacted in the Roach Motel. I asked if Redacted is black and is referred to as Redacted, and Jennifer said yes. I asked Jennifer if Redacted is redacted, and Jennifer said she did not know. I asked Jennifer to tell me about the last time that she was at Galen's house, and Jennifer stated that she and Corey went to Galen's on Sunday, November 20th, 2016 at around 8:30 p.m. or 9 p.m. and stayed there until between 10 and 11. Jennifer said she and Corey left to go home and eat. Jennifer told that Galen said they could come back after they finished eating since Galen did not have to work that next day. Jennifer stated she and Corey did not go back to Galen since Jennifer, had to be at work at 5:15 in the morning. Jennifer told me that was the last time that she has spoken with Galen. This is the Colton Creasy interview. On Wednesday, November 23rd, 2016, at approximately 2:45 p.m., I met with Colton Creasy at the Flora Police Department. I asked Colton to wait up front while I contacted Flora's Assistant Fire Chief, Todd Trent, who is now the chief of the head of the fire department in Flora, by the way. For the purpose of this report, Assistant Fire Chief Todd Trent will be referred to by his first name throughout the remainder of this report. Soon after Todd arrived, he met with Colton and I in the lobby at the Flora Town Hall. Todd introduced himself, and then I escorted Colton to the interview room. While walking back to the room, I explained to Colton that we were just needing some information in regards to the fire. I explained that he was just there for information, and at no time was he being arrested or detained. Once back in the interview room, I asked Colton to take a seat and wait while I brought Todd back to the interview room. I should note, prior to entering the interview room, I activated the camera system. This is to record our discussion accurately. Once Todd and I entered the interview room, Todd introduced himself as the Assistant Chief of the Flora Fire Department. And once this was established, we began to discuss with Colton his relationship with Galen Rose. Below is a reflection of his statement. Todd asked Colton if he would mind being recorded during this interview. Colton said that was fine. I explained to Colton that the door to the interview room is open and that he is not under arrest, and if he feels like he needs to leave, he can at any time. Colton stated that he understood. Todd explained to Colton that the objective of this interview is to find out what took place at Galen's residence the night of the fire. Todd confirmed with Colton that he knew Galen and was involved with her. Colton advised that he knows Galen, the 4 children, and the father. Colton stated that he has gotten to know the family. Todd asked Colton how that is. Colton said he got to know Galen through mutual friends. Colton told us that he had gone to the marathon at one day, and that is how the conversation struck up. Todd then asked Colton if he was just a friend or if he had a relationship with Galen. Colton stated they were shooting for a relationship. He claims that Galen liked how he was presenting himself. Colton said he liked some of the qualities that she had. Colton then stated that their relationship was more sexual. Colton told us that they continued to talk about being in a relationship as it became more serious. Todd then asked Colton if he had a sexual relationship with Galen. Colton confirmed his relationship with Galen. And Todd then asked Colton when was the last time it was that he had had sex with her. Colton told us it was about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5. Todd asked Colton how long this type of relationship had been going on. Colton replied, maybe a month and a half. Colton then stated that he just met her, not real god-awful long ago. I asked him to be more specific. Colton said maybe 2 months tops. Todd then asked Colton to help us with the layout of the house. Todd confirmed with Colton that he had been inside the apartment. Colton said yes. Todd confirmed with Colton that Galen's bedroom was on the left once you entered the residence. I then handed to Colton a yellow tablet so he could sketch a layout of the room. I explained to Colton it was because the inside of the house is burned. Todd told Colton it would help him understand what the inside of the house looked like. Please see the videotape and sketch for his layout of the house. I should note there was a total of 5 sketches completed at the time of this interview, and copies of these have been included with my report. The originals were retained by Todd. At one point, the dining room was brought up, and a table and a bicycle was reported as being in this room. Todd asked if anyone rode the bicycle. Colton said that it belonged to one of the girls, and it was kept inside, probably to keep it out of the weather. Colton pointed out on his sketch where the bike would have been kept. Todd asked Colton if the bike was rode frequently. Colton told us the oldest one did. Colton started describing the steps to the upstairs and its location. Colton showed us on the sketch where you get to the stairs, and Colton said he did not know a lot about the upstairs, as most of what they did was downstairs. Colton further said that when they did things downstairs, the kids would do their things in their rooms upstairs. Colton advised he didn't really know the layout of the rooms upstairs. Colton then started to draw a room he labeled as the kitchen. He then mentioned there was a door that led to the basement. Todd told Colton to do one room at a time as he wanted to get it right. Todd then asked him to draw a layout of the kitchen. Todd asked Colton if he remembered how the refrigerator sat. I interrupted and asked that Colton draw each room and its layout on a separate piece of paper. Colton then began to draw the sketch of the kitchen and its contents. It is obvious that Colton was very detailed in the layout of what appliances were located within the kitchen. At one point, Todd asked Colton if he knew the location of a microwave coffee pot and the toaster was prior to the fire. Colton stated he wasn't sure about the toaster as he never has saw one out. Colton started placing a list of items he recalled being in the kitchen above the sketch. Colton then bragged about being very unaware of his surroundings and that he is blessed with this ability, being very aware of his surroundings. Colton said, "I have a vivid memory." Todd asked Colton if he ever spent the night at Galen's residence, and Colton said yes. Todd then asked Colton if this occurred every time he visited, and Colton replied no. Colton commented that he would come over periodically just to see how she and the kids were. Colton said one of the biggest reasons she didn't want to get into a relationship just yet is because he doesn't have a working cell phone. Colton told us that he does have a Verizon cell phone, but that his phone is always on roaming while in Flora. Colton explained to us that he has to be on Wi-Fi in order to get signal to send and receive text messages. Colton stated that if he didn't respond to Galen's text messages within an appropriate amount of time, she would give him some riffraff. Colton said he tried to explain the situation to Galen and that she should not get upset with him about this. Colton described to us how Galen would act when she was upset with him. If Colton did not respond in the right amount of time, she would tell Colton not to come back over. Colton said this was done usually in a joking manner. Colton stated that he would then get a text message from her later that night saying she was sorry. Colton told us that Galen is really a good person, has a good heart, and her kids were great. Colton told us that one of the girls was a cheerleader and played basketball. Colton said Galen's kids really took a liking to him, and he stated that they would play games and color together. Colton told us he knows what it's like to be a parent as he has children himself. Colton claims he is really good with kids because they feel comfortable with him as if he is a big kid himself. He described to us how he will get down on the floor and play with them. I asked Colton how many nights a week he would stay with Galen, and Colton asked repetitively. Colton then stated 1, maybe 2 nights a week. I then confirmed that Colton usually stays either at Galen's or his mother's residence located at Redacted. Colton said he and his mother usually bicker like a normal family, and Colton stated if things got heated between his mom and then he would have a place to stay. Colton indicated that he would stay there until things with his mother calmed down. Colton advised that Galen would give him advice and tell him that he needed to get away from his mom. Todd then asked Colton if he knew how old the appliances were in the apartment. Colton stated that the coffee pot was brand new and it was a Keurig. Colton said Galen's Aunt Jackie bought that for her as a present. Todd asked Colton if he knew why it was bought as a present. Colton stated it was just because it was a present. Todd asked Colton if the coffee pot was a month or 2 months old. Colton said maybe 2. I confirmed with Colton that he and Galen were already seeing each other when Jackie bought the coffee pot for her. Colton said yes. I then asked Colton if he had met Galen's Aunt Jackie. Colton said he had met Galen's Aunt Jackie as well as her father. Colton told us he hasn't met the whole family, but it was due partly from them living in California. Todd asked Colton how about the microwave. Colton stated that the microwave was older and was approximately 10 years old. Colton said it was obvious that it was old. And Todd asked Colton about the refrigerator. He asked if it was at least a couple of years old. Colton said this was hard to answer as looks can be deceiving. He then went on to describe it as being clean and kept things cold. Todd asked Colton if he could remember the brand name. Colton was unable to give us a brand, but did indicate he thought the refrigerator to be at least 5 years old. I asked Colton if the refrigerator was quite quiet or loud, and Colton stated it was quiet. Colton then moved on to the stove, and Colton told us the stove did not work properly. Todd asked Colton what it was the stove would do, and Colton said that he went over to cook one night and that the stove was electric. Colton stated the stove had a porcelain top. He stated it didn't appear to have a heating element. Colton confirmed the stove had a flat cooking surface, and Colton advised he did not like this type of stove. Colton described cooking one night while he was there. He stated he probably had a 10 to 12-inch cooking skillet, and Colton said he was cooking a large amount of hamburger due to there being 6 people eating. Colton told us he put the skillet on the big burner in front and found it didn't work. Colton said he asked Galen about the burner, but was told that while it would heat up, it did not work right. Colton said he then had to cook on a smaller sized burner. Colton said he does know for sure that Galen's stove was not working properly. I asked Colton how many burners the stove had, and Colton told me 4, 2 large and 2 small. Colton told us that Galen told him to use the small burner instead. Colton stated he did as Galen asked him to, and Todd asked Colton if the other large burner was working. Colton said he didn't know. Todd asked Colton which burner it was, and he told us it was the front left. I asked Colton if he knew who made the stove and suggested a name. Colton again said he didn't remember. Colton stated that if it was something out of the ordinary, then he would retain it. Todd asked Colton if the oven itself worked, and Colton appeared to be thinking, but then said he wasn't 100% sure. Todd then asked Colton if he ever saw Galen cook by using a crock pot, and Colton said yes. Colton went on to say that Galen cooked frequently with a crock pot. Todd asked Colton if he knew where Galen kept the crock pot, and Colton then pointed to a counter he had drawn in the sketch and said right here. It was then determined that the crock pot was left of the sink, and Colton said it was the last place he saw her cooking with that. Todd told Colton he was sure that they had the kitchen done and asked if they could move on to the back room near the kitchen. Colton started talking about a room that went down to the basement. Todd asked Colton to explain how that room looked. Colton told us the room in question is very cluttered, and he would consider it a catch-all room. Todd asked Colton to describe the door to him. He told Colton it was because the door isn't there anymore. Colton started to draw an image of the door. He then tells us there is a chain lock on the left side of the door. Todd confirmed with Colton that the lock was on the left side, if standing in the kitchen. Todd asked Colton where the doorknob was located. Colton said it was directly below the chain. Todd then asked Colton what direction the door was. Colton said the door was facing south, and Todd asked Colton which side of the door were the hinges on. Colton drew a spot on the sketch and indicated they were on the right side of the door. Todd then got up from the interview table and used the interview room door as an example. Todd asked Colton if this was correct, and Colton said no, the door hinges are on the right side and the doorknob is on the left. Todd asked Colton if the door opened into the kitchen or if it pushed outwards towards the catch-all room. Colton said the door opened towards the catch-all room. Colton then started to make another diagram of the kitchen. As Colton was drawing the sketch with the door, he stopped and said, I think the doorknob was on the left. Todd told Colton to take time to think about it. Colton again said he believed the hinges were on the right and the doorknob was on the left. Colton then stood up and walked over to the interview room door. He described the door as if it was the door inside the house. Colton again claimed the door handle to be on the left and that it opened into the other room. Todd asked if the door opened into the other room and if it hit against some shelving. Colton advised it did. And Colton said the other room contained a lot of things, but felt like Galen had cleared most of it out of the way. Colton stated he would often go down into the basement with Galen while she did her laundry. According to Colton, the basement had lots of cobwebs and spiders, and Galen did not like spiders and didn't like going down there. Colton said Galen would often have her children or himself go down there with her. Todd then asked Colton to redraw the sketch of the kitchen door. Colton started redrawing the sketch of the door. While drawing, Colton stated the original was how it was, and he doesn't sound like second-guessing himself. Todd made the comment that sometimes it takes a visual aid to help with this. I then said to Colton, I'm sure it's upset you like it did us. Colton said it did, and he told his mother that it really hits close to home. Colton made the comment that he has spent the night in the house and this is serious business. Colton stated he can't even imagine what Galen feels like right now. Colton told us he heard reports that Galen asked the doctor to sedate her. Colton then said it's some pretty serious stuff. Colton put his head down toward the sketch and stated it's pretty sad. I asked Colton if he had talked to her. Colton told us he had not spoken to her. Once Colton was done with the sketch, Todd asked if the door was totally solid or if it had windows in it, and Colton said he remembered there were things hanging on the door. Colton thought it was like fabric material hanging. Colton said he can't think of a reason why it would have been there unless there was a window. Colton told us that he didn't think there was a window and that he remembers seeing a solid door. Todd said this is kind of weird that they would have something hanging on a solid door. Colton said, I agree, but I do remember something hanging on it. Todd then asked if the door worked smoothly or did it hang up, being it was a wood floor. Todd asked if he had to lift up on the handle and force it open. Colton said the door was usually cracked unless it was at nighttime. And then Galen would usually close the door and lock it. Todd confirmed with Colton that the door had a chain on it, the same type of chain that is commonly used in hotel rooms. Colton said the chain was on the same side as the doorknob, and Colton said he never physically closed the door, so he couldn't say whether or not it was hard. Colton then stated he didn't really know a lot about the door. I asked Colton if he observed the kids going in and out of it, and Colton said we would go in and out of it when we were going down to do the laundry, going down to the laundry room, and the kids would go in and out of it. I again asked Colton if he observed whether the kids had difficulty going in and out of it, and Colton said, like I said, the door was usually cracked. Colton then described the door being opened by using his index finger on each hand, which he described was approximately 5 to 6 inches in length. Todd asked Colton what he would call the distance between his fingers, and Colton said 4 to 5 inches. I asked Colton if Galen ever used the chain on the door, and Colton said yes, usually at night. Colton said that was one of the things they would talk about at night. Todd stated that once you go down, Todd stated that we know that room was basically a clutter room and then described some of the articles inside it. Todd then confirmed with Colton that the kids never used that room to do homework. Colton said no. Colton stated he thought that room was just a catch-all room. Todd stated that once you go down the steps and get to the bottom, you can go left to the walkout door or right to go down into the basement. Todd asked Colton about the walkout door that leads to the outside, and Colton said he went out that door once. He said Galen took him outside and commented, well, this is my yard. Todd asked Colton if that particular door was solid, and Colton said he wasn't sure, as he didn't pay attention to that door. Colton described the moment when she showed him her yard. She was kind of joking. Colton said he didn't know that the area outside was fenced in. Todd confirmed that Colton was seeing Galen and that it creates some feelings. Colton sat there and didn't say anything, and Todd then asked Colton if there were other men. Colton said, to the best of my knowledge, no. Colton said that Galen stated she was faithful whether she was in a relationship or not. I then asked Colton if his relationship with Galen was like a friend with benefits. Colton said it started out like a friend with benefits. Colton told us that Galen said that he was a good-looking guy and she is tired of the type of people that she had been dating. Todd asked Colton how long it had been since Galen last dated anyone, and Colton told us that she said it had been about 2 years. Todd asked Colton if it was 2 years prior to her going out with him, and Colton said yes. I asked Colton if Galen had any friends that would hang around the house. Colton said that Galen would have people come over. Colton stated that Galen had quite a few girlfriends that would come over. Colton told us that Galen would even have some guy friends come over. I asked Colton if he knew any of them, and Colton said he didn't really know as they were not from around here. Todd asked Colton how he felt about that, and Colton said it didn't really matter because they weren't really anything. Colton said the way he looks at it, a woman is going to do what a woman is going to do. Colton said if a woman is going to cheat on you, there is nothing you can do. Colton said he learned that while being married. Colton went on to say that if someone wants to stop by and say hello, that is their prerogative. Todd asked Colton what he would do if someone stopped by and wanted to make love to Galen. Colton said he would stand up and escort himself out. Colton stated he wasn't going to stay there, watch, or participate. Todd again asked Colton about someone stopping by and wanting friends with benefits and if he would be okay with that. Colton said he would just move on to someone else. I asked Colton if he knew of anyone that wanted to date Galen, and Colton said no. She told me a lot about people being rude and hateful to her. Colton said this was because of her skin color. I confirmed it was here in Flora. Colton said that Galen's dad, Tracy, would tell him stories about being out and walking the streets and people calling him the N-word. Todd confirmed that this happened in Flora. I made the comment that Galen was always friendly and is a great person. Colton agreed and said, yes, she is. Colton said she really was. And that's what I don't like, anyone getting picked on. Colton then claims that he was that kid who got picked on. Colton made the comment that if he ever sees that, then he is going to stick up for them. I told Colton that they were trying to figure out who was at the house the night of the fire. I said it doesn't matter if they're black, white, or Mexican. I told Colton we don't know, but we need to figure it out. I told Colton I was in hopes he could help us with this. Colton said he could sit right there and tell us that he was not there at the house that night. Colton stated that he drove by on the way to work as he wakes up at 4 a.m. And Colton said he has to leave the house by no later than 4:45 a.m. Colton said he drove by because the fire was on the news. I asked Colton if he was at home when the fire started, and Colton said, yeah, I was home in bed. Colton made the comment that someone had said like 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And then he said that is what the news said. I said, I'm not really sure what time the fire actually started. Colton then stated, well, that's just the time I heard it started, was around 3:30 a.m. He said, well, yeah, I was home in bed because I have to be at work. I asked Colton what time he had to be at work, and Colton said 6 a.m. Colton told us he gets to work about every morning around 5:20 a.m. Todd asked Colton where it is that he works, and Colton said the FCA in Lafayette. I asked Colton if they were a temporary agency, and Colton said no. I said, your mom told me that they were a temp agency, and Colton stated he is going through a temp agency working for FCA. I then asked Colton what temp agency he was working through, and Colton said Pro Resources. Colton then described where and what the company does as far as work. Todd asked Colton if Galen smoked cigarettes. Colton said she did not. Todd then asked Colton if he smoked. Colton said, I do. Todd asked Colton if Galen allowed him to smoke in the house, and Colton shook his head in an up and down fashion, indicating she did. Todd asked Colton if anyone else smoked in the house, and Colton said her Aunt Jackie and her father. Todd asked Colton if there was anyone else he could think of, and Colton told us that some of her friends that came over did smoke. I again asked Colton if he knew of any of her friends' names, and Colton said no. I think most of them, she said, are from Lafayette. I told Colton I didn't know Galen that well, and I needed his help to figure this out. Todd said that he thought it was odd that a non-smoker would let other smokers in her house when she has children. Todd asked Colton if it bothered Galen. Colton said it doesn't bother her. Once again, Todd told Colton that the interview was about the fire department and not about the police, and explained that paraphernalia was located in the house. Todd described the paraphernalia as one-hitter stuff. Todd explained that he was only wanting answers and that no one is going to jail over this stuff. And Colton said, "Around me, she didn't smoke." Todd asked Colton if he knew of anyone that might have been smoking the one-hitters in her bedroom. And Colton said, "Honestly, no." I confirmed that with Colton that he didn't have any pipes there and that I knew he had smoked it in the past. Colton stated he had. I asked Colton if those were his pipes, and Colton said, "I don't smoke out of one-hitters." Todd again asked Colton if he ever saw Galen smoke marijuana. Colton said, "I've never seen it." Todd told Colton he found a lighter in the bedroom. Todd told Colton he knows someone was hanging out and he needs to talk to them, and Colton said, "I agree." Todd asked Colton if there was anyone he could talk to. Colton stated he wished he could help and that he tried to be as helpful as he could. I explained to Colton why it was important that we talk to everyone. Colton asked if anyone asked Galen if she smoked pot. Todd told Colton that our objective is we are trying to resolve this whole mess. And Colton said, "Somebody told me that the wiring in this house was kind of faulty." Colton indicated he didn't have any firsthand knowledge of this. Todd then drew attention to Colton's drawing of the kitchen and asked that Colton explain where the trash can was located. Todd confirmed that the trash can was before the door, and Colton stated it was just off a corner. Colton described the trash can was approximately a 13-gallon. Was approximately 13 gallons. I asked Colton if the garbage can was plastic, and Colton said, yes, it had a swinging door. Galen usually took that swinging door off as she didn't like it. I asked Colton how she heated the place. Colton stated that she had heat and he guessed it was with a furnace. Colton said he wasn't 100% sure, but you could feel it when it kicked on. I confirmed with Colton that Galen had no space heaters of any kind. I asked if she ever used the oven to keep the house warm, and Colton said no. Todd asked Colton if there was anything he could remember, like a light flickering in the bedroom, or if she complained of a light switch not working. Colton said the only thing she complained about was the stove. I asked Colton if she cooked a lot, and Colton said she did. Colton told us that she cooked as she had 4 kids, so she had to feed them. Colton stated that she used her crock pot. I asked if Galen cooked a lot using grease. Todd then asked if she deep fried. Colton said nothing out of the normal. Todd then asked Colton about her routine, what her routine was like. And Colton said she always tried to keep the girls in bed by 9 p.m. Colton said there were times when the kids were being wild and rambunctious, but they were kids. Colton stated she would get irritated, but would tell them to get in there and go to bed. Colton told us that Galen would often start to wind down around 10:30 p.m. at night. Colton stated this was because she would go to work at the Marathon gas station and she would have to get up sometimes at 3:30 in the morning. I asked Colton if she worked days or nights, and Colton said both. She predominantly worked days. I asked Colton who would watch the kids when she went to work at night, and Colton said, I'm not sure. Colton stated he never watched the kids unless she was there with him. Todd asked Colton if there was anything just sticking out there, and Colton said, I wish, man. I then asked Colton when was the last time he had talked to her, and Colton stated the last time he saw her and had spoken to her was approximately 2 weeks ago. Colton said she was irritated because of the cell phone line. I then confronted Colton about the fact that I had heard Galen and him had just broken up the day before the fire. I asked Colton why she would say something like that. Colton shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. Colton said that it was if something you would have to ask her. He said this was because they hadn't spoken. Colton said he saw it on Facebook where Galen will say these little random things. Colton described her saying things like she is mad at him. Colton said he would then have people coming to him saying, I guess you and Galen are broke up. Colton stated we really wasn't dating. Colton said they were trying to see each other, but there really wasn't a relationship there. Colton indicated there was a possibility, but that Galen was kind of controlling and demanding. And Colton described himself as being more laid back. I then asked Colton to describe Galen's temperament, and Colton kept thinking, so I asked him if her temperament was explosive. Colton said not really explosive. He said the word that jumps out at him is that she is controlling. Colton stated that Galen would get mad due to a comment that someone would put on his Facebook. Colton said it could be anything, nothing sexual, or even a female leaving a comment. Colton stated that he told her they can't be doing things like this. I asked Colton how he handled something like that, and Colton claimed he told her that they can't be doing things like this as he isn't one who likes being controlled. Colton said he is in control of his life and he wouldn't do anything out of the norm that is going to irritate her. Colton once again said that Galen was kind of controlling. I asked Colton if Galen was on any type of medication, and Colton said, to the best of my knowledge, no. Colton said he always thought she might be a little off, as in bipolar. Colton described her as being happy one minute to mad at something so small the next. I asked Colton if she was depressed, and Colton stated she was a little bit. I asked Colton if he knew what she was depressed about. Colton said money. Colton told us that he had a very small bank account, so it's not like he could throw her money. And this was even more so because they weren't going to be dating. Colton said while he had sympathy for her, he couldn't really help her without putting himself at jeopardy. I confirmed with Colton that he started seeing Galen approximately 2 months ago. Colton agreed and stated that he first, when he first went into the marathon station, that's when he met her. Colton claimed that Galen stopped him and asked how he was doing. Colton said he was in the store with one of his friends and that his friend mentioned that Galen was giving him the eye. Colton stated he went to the marathon the following day and Galen had given him her telephone number. And Colton said this is how we started talking. I asked Colton if their relationship quit 2 weeks prior to the fire. Colton said, yeah, about 2 weeks. I asked Colton how often it was that he saw Galen. Colton told us he would go over there and sit for about 30 minutes up to an hour. He stated this happened about 3 times a week. Colton made the comment that he would stay there as well as his own place too. I asked Colton if the two of them always engaged in sex when he stopped by. Colton said this would usually happen, but it always happened at night, after the kids were tucked in. I asked Colton at about what time of night this would happen, and he said usually between 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night. I asked Colton if this consisted of early morning hours. Colton told us no, because she had to be at work. Colton said there really wasn't any time, and the fact she had to sleep sometime. I asked Colton what time Galen usually went to bed. Colton told us it was usually between 10:30 or 11. I asked Colton if Galen drank. Colton stated that she would have a couple of adult beverages, as in a red apple ale. Colton said she would tell him that 2 beers would make her tipsy. I asked Colton if he ever drank while he was visiting, and Colton said no, not at all. Colton said he doesn't drink much anymore. Colton stated that he learned his lesson, but if he does, he will stay at his house. Colton said that this was due to having run-ins with the law. Colton then stated he is not on parole or probation at this time. I asked Colton if he owns a yellow car now. Colton stated that the car isn't running at the moment and that it needs some mechanical work done. I asked Colton what it is he drives to get back and forth to work, and Colton told us that he pays people. I asked Colton how he got to work that particular night, and Colton stated my mother. I asked Colton if his mother gets tired of taking him. Colton advised that she gets paid and she too has to be at work in the morning. He then told us he has to be at work by 6 a.m. and she has to be at work by 6:30. Colton stated it works out that his mom works nearby and she works a 24-hour shift. I asked Colton what his mother thought when they drove by and saw the fire. And Colton told us she was like, oh my. Colton went on to say that he heard on the news that the fire was happening in the 100 block of Columbia Street, and he remembers sitting there thinking, I know somebody on the 100 block. Colton said he told his mom, we're going to have to run by there this morning, Mom. Colton said he sent Galen a text message as he drove by. Colton talked about all the fire trucks, police, and the ambulance in front of her house and asked Galen why and if she was okay. Colton told us he still had not received a reply back from her. I asked Colton if that worried him, and Colton said it really did. He went on to say that he checked his phone while on break and saw there was no response. Colton said he sent her another text and said he was sorry for bothering her, but that he was worried. Colton stated he hadn't talked to Galen for at least a week and a half, and Colton said he would have to reference the time frame by looking on his phone. Colton stated that since then he had not heard anything from her and assumed that she was going to go on with the rest of her life, which was fine by him. Colton said that he was trying to do the same thing. Todd asked Colton if he recalled any smoke detectors while inside, like maybe on his back, looking up towards the ceiling. Colton said no. He went on to say there was a light directly above, and Colton stated he didn't think there was a smoke detector in her bedroom, and he really never recalled seeing one. Todd thanked Colton for interviewing, but requested that he take some time and think about another person he could talk to that could give him more information. Colton didn't really answer, but stated that he tried to be as descriptive as he could be. I asked Colton if Galen had any brothers or sisters in the area, and Colton said she has a father in the area. Todd advised Colton that he had already spoken with Tracy and that he tried to tell him things, but that he isn't as graphic as laying it all out. Todd again asked Colton for a few more names of people that knew her or had possibly gone out with her the night of the fire. Todd asked Colton if he knew of a black male that worked at McDonald's. Colton stated he had seen a black guy come over, and Colton described the black male as having braids. Colton said one of the guys did have on a McDonald's shirt. Colton told us he remembers that guy bringing Galen an iced coffee, or maybe it was a milkshake. I asked Colton if that guy worked at the one in Delphi or Kokomo, and Colton said he didn't know. I asked Colton if he was driving, and Colton said yes. I asked Colton if he remembered what he was driving, and Colton said he wasn't 100% sure, as he didn't go outside to see what he was driving. I asked Colton when he thought he saw this guy at Galen's house, and Colton stated he thought it was about 4 weeks ago. I asked Colton if he knew what their relationship was like, as in friends. Colton said, I think so. I asked Colton if he ever thought they might be friends with benefits, and Colton told us that anything is possible. Colton said Galen never mentioned anything like that. I asked Colton what the unknown male's demeanor was like when he was around Galen, and Colton indicated he was normal. I asked Colton if he thought this guy might be attracted to Galen, and Colton said that it could be possible. All in all, Colton said it seemed more like just friendship. I asked Colton if he thought this guy was from Flora, and Colton said, I don't think so. I asked Colton if she referred to this guy by a name or a nickname. Colton said he thought she called him by redacted. I asked if by redacted, if she meant redacted, and Colton said no, redacted. I asked Colton if he knew any females that were friends with Galen. Colton then brought up Jennifer Barnes' name. I asked Colton if Jennifer Barnes was a friend of Galen's, and Colton said yes. Colton said he remembered walking in Galen's house one day and saw Jennifer Barnes walking out. I asked Colton how long ago he saw Jennifer there. Colton said it was probably around a month ago since he saw her. I then asked Colton if Jennifer had her boyfriend with her, and Colton said no, she was alone. Colton said up to that point, he didn't know that Galen and Jennifer knew each other. Colton then brings up the name Redacted, and Colton went on to say that Redacted and she were friends. Colton said while he couldn't say how well they knew each other, he did see them up at Fisher's one night, and Colton said he was on Redacted's Facebook one night and noticed Redacted was friends with Galen. Todd asked Colton if he was at Galen's. When he was at Galen's, did anyone come by and later leave because he was there? I then asked Colton how she felt about him being white and her being black. He stated she thought it was acceptable. Colton said that Galen told him that he was the first white guy she had dated. Colton told us that Galen told him she was tired of dating black guys and that they all treated her like shit. He then went on to say that she liked how he treated and respected her and the girls. I asked Colton if any of Galen's black friends would get upset because she was dating a white guy. Colton said, not that I remember. Todd asked Colton if they dated outside of the house. Colton said no. Colton said they mainly stayed indoors. Todd asked if there was a reason for that, and Colton stated he believed it was mostly due to money. Colton said he would offer things and Galen would comment that she needs to save her money. I asked Colton if Galen drove and Colton said yes. Colton stated that the old gold car was her Aunt Jackie's, and Colton said her Aunt Jackie was allowing her to drive it because her Blazer had been torn up. So this was like a loaner. Todd then confirmed with Colton that Galen drove the gold car to get back and forth from the marathon. I then asked Colton if he knew Galen's phone number by chance, and Colton said yes. Todd then asked Colton to write down the number. Colton, while writing the number down, said, redacted out loud. Todd asked Colton if he had a driver's license. Colton told us that he did not have one. Todd asked if this was his choice or if they had been taken away. Colton stated that he could not have them reinstated and they were suspended due to an OWI. Colton said all he had to do was pay his reinstatement fees. Todd asked Colton what he would do if he wasn't able to get a ride, and Colton said he would walk or ride a bicycle. Colton also stated he would call somebody from the bar because he has Wi-Fi. I confirmed with Colton that he could place calls using Wi-Fi. Todd confirmed with Colton that if he was to go somewhere, he would walk, ride a bike, or call someone. Colton stated it was getting cold. He would not use the first two options. Todd asked Colton when the last time he was uptown walking around, and Colton said it was probably about 3 weeks ago. I asked Colton if he was at home the day of the fire, and Colton stated he was home and out like a light. He made the comment that he only had 30 minutes left to sleep. I asked Colton what time he got home that night, and he stated it was probably around 3:30. It is unknown if he meant the night before the fire or the day of the fire. It is also unknown if he meant AM or PM. I asked Colton if he was still using the same bedroom he has in the past, and Colton said he was. I then asked Colton who else was staying with him and his mother, and Colton said no one. I asked Colton about a guy who was there one night having chest pains. It was discussed, and I decided I was talking about one of his neighbors. Colton stated that he would occasionally let this guy come over to use his cell phone. Colton confirmed it was just him, his mother, and a cat. Todd asked Colton if he would tell his mom he is home and that he is going to bed. Colton gave us an example of a scenario like what Todd asked about. Colton said, let's take, for instance, that I spent the night at Galen's and she has to be at work at 3:30 in the morning. Colton stated Galen would set her alarm and both of them would get up at the same time. Let's say it's nice outside. I would get on my bicycle and leave. Colton said Galen would get in her car and leave and he would go to his house. Colton said he would probably get home around 3:40 in the morning and that it takes him approximately 6 minutes to ride home. Colton said he used his key to get in, and if his mom hears him come in, she will get up. Colton said he usually just lets her sleep. I confirmed with Colton that his mother sleeps on the couch a lot. Colton stated that his mother usually hears him, and this is due to her being a very light sleeper. Colton described his mother as being a light sleeper and that she could hear a pin drop in the next door trailer. Todd asked Colton to give an example of a time that he didn't agree with Galen on how he would handle an argument with her. Colton stated they didn't really argue a lot. Colton said the main thing they would argue about is her seeing someone posting or something said on Facebook. I asked Colton if Galen was a jealous person, and Colton said yeah. Todd asked Colton how he would reply to what Galen would say. Colton told us he is a grown-ass man. Colton said he can't control what those people type. This is in regards to people posting things on Facebook. Colton said if Galen continued to press the issues, he would tell her he is leaving. Colton said that is what happened the last time when they got into it. Todd asked him if out of anger he had ever knocked something off the shelf or thrown something, and Colton said no. And Colton further stated that he will do that in the house, but not hers. Todd told Colton, so it's basically, I'm leaving. I don't want to hear your shit. I'm gone. Colton agreed with Todd's statement. Colton then made the comment that they really weren't that far together. Todd made the comment that he thinks Galen was farther along in the relationship than he thinks. Colton said she was. I confirmed with Colton that he believes she had more invested in the relationship than he did. Colton said he realized that a woman is going to do what a woman wants to do. Colton said there is nothing he can do that is going to stop it. Colton said, let me show you the door, then let me show myself out. Colton said he doesn't hold grudges and he has no reason to. Colton said he is more concerned about humanity than people think. Colton said he believes we live in a crazy world and some of the stuff that is going on is just outrageous. I asked Colton the night of the fire, how come you didn't want to stop and make sure she was physically okay? Colton said he was pretty sure he saw a guide boarding up something. Colton said it looked chaotic and he didn't want to stop. Colton stated there was a lot of people. Todd then asked Colton how he was able to get by since the street was blocked. Colton stated he had went around. Colton then described his route of travel. He started off by saying he took 3rd Street to Columbia. Colton said he thinks his mom turned off onto but couldn't remember what the name of the street was. I asked Colton if they turned left or right. Colton advised that they had turned right, then left. This would mean they turned right onto Bright Street and then left onto Main Street. Colton said they came out by Norton Insurance Agency, and Colton claims to have been on Division Street and had stopped catty corner to Galen's house. Colton then said he turned right by the Pizza King, and Todd then informed me that Division Street was blocked and no one could have turned onto Columbia from Division Street. I asked Colton what time it was that he went through, and Colton said it was about 5 a.m. He said it was probably about 4:50 a.m. Todd asked Colton if he'd heard any helicopters about that time, and Colton said no. Colton said it's possible that he might have left a little sooner due to him hearing about this on the news. Colton said it was definitely between 4:30 and 5, and he said there was a lot going on, so the details are a little sketchy. I asked Colton how he felt when he found out, and Colton said I was devastated. Colton then stated it is something he wouldn't wish on his worst enemy. I said, this is because you also have interaction with the kids? Colton shook his head as if saying yes. I then asked Colton how he thinks the fire must have started. Colton stated he thought it would be faulty wiring and it being an old home. Colton went on to say how many cobwebs were downstairs. I asked Colton if Galen kept a clean house, and Colton said yes. Colton said she was clean except every room besides the one by the kitchen. I said, did she keep things picked up? And Colton said yes. I then asked Colton if Galen had a lot of things plugged in, and Colton told us it wasn't anything out of the norm. Colton stated he couldn't think of anything. Todd asked Colton if Galen burnt candles, and Colton thought for a minute and then said sometimes. Todd asked Colton where it was she would burn the candles, and Colton stated that if you walked in through the door, there was like a fireplace kind of on the left-hand side. Colton told us she would have 1 or 2 candles burning there. Todd confirmed the candles were on the mantle. Todd also confirmed with Colton that she never burned candles on the coffee table, the kitchen, or bedroom. Colton said he never seen her. I asked Colton why she burned candles. He said it must have been a personal preference. Todd then asked Colton if he played with fire as a child. Colton said no. Todd asked Colton if he liked to burn cats. Colton said he isn't into animal cruelty, and Todd asked Colton if he had ever explored with fire. Colton told us he did when he built bonfires. Todd asked him if he was ever intrigued about fire. Colton stated it was pretty simple. Colton said he is not infatuated with fire and he doesn't find fire funny. He goes on to say that fire isn't a game at all. I made the comment, "You have been burned before." Colton looked at his left arm and said he had, and that he has scars from it. Todd asked Colton how he was burned. Colton told him it was due to cooking. Todd asked Colton why he didn't stop and give Galen support when he passed away, or when he passed by. And Colton said, he didn't see himself, then stops, then says he only saw a lot of uninformed or uniformed police officers, firemen, and paramedics. Colton said he didn't feel it was the right time to stop by. Todd asked Colton if she knew Galen was injured. If he knew Colton, that's a misprint. Todd asked Colton if he knew Galen was injured. Colton said no. I asked Colton when he found out. Colton stated it was after he got off work at 2:30 p.m. Todd then asked Colton if he knew what took place that morning, and Todd confirmed that he had seen fire trucks. Colton said, right, you could see black stuff on the side of the building. Colton stated he was able to see a little bit of smoke, and then it looked like the upstairs apartment had burned. Colton said he didn't know if it was them or Galen's apartment. Colton said it was right after that he sent the text message asking why all the firemen, paramedics, and police were doing there. I then asked Colton how the kids slept. I continued by asking if they were in the same room or what, and Colton stated he wasn't sure as he didn't know the upstairs layout. Colton said the children slept up there, and that is all he knows. Colton said when the girls would go upstairs, he would stay downstairs. I asked Colton if the kids knew he had a relationship with Mom, and Colton said yeah. I asked Colton if he left before the kids woke up. Colton said yes, and Colton explained that the kids were still asleep due to them not having to wake up until school. Todd asked Colton if Galen did this because he was white. He then clarified himself by saying, you were there during the day. But the only time they would have sex is when he would come over at night around 10:30 p.m. Colton describes that some days they would engage in sex if both would get home from work early. I asked Colton what time Galen had to be at work in the morning. Colton told us she told him she had to be at work at 3:30 in the morning. I asked Colton who watched the kids when she left for work. Colton said to the best of his ability, no one was there. I think he meant from the best of his knowledge. I then asked Colton, no one stays with them, right? Colton said no. Todd conveyed his reasoning by all the questions. Once Todd was done, Colton asked Todd if it was bad inside, and Todd said, yeah, it is. Colton said remembered and started to say, I opened, but said he was listening to the news and heard the fire was undetermined because of the damage being so severe. After discussing how fires are started and that we are set to find out what has caused this fire, Colton stated he was a little apprehensive due to him having a criminal background. I made the comment that he has always cooperated with me. Colton then stated that he is still cooperating. Colton went on to say that he is a very good person, that he has great intentions, but this whole thing is pretty devastating. I told Colton that I was going to ask him a question, and it was more in line to find out who else was in the bedroom or the home. I asked Colton if we send the paraphernalia pipes to the lab, if there is any reason why it would come back with his DNA. Colton said no. Colton again said they are not mine. I noticed Colton started to get nervous more than at any other time. We both told Colton that since we were told that Galen didn't smoke, that we needed to find out who was in the house that was smoking. Colton told us the two people that he knew smoked in the house was Galen's Aunt Jackie and her father, Tracy Rose. I asked Colton if Galen had ashtrays for them all to smoke. Colton said yes, there were little black ashtrays. Colton then described the type of ashtray she had in her house. Todd asked Colton where Galen kept these ashtrays. Colton stated they were kept in numerous places. And Colton then described the area of the house he would normally smoke in. I heard Todd say it was near the dining room area. I asked Colton, you weren't there that night smoking? Colton said, no. We thanked Colton for his time. As we stood up, I shook Colton's hand and noticed it was very wet with sweat. I thought this was odd as his demeanor was very calm and collected. This concluded our interview, and there's nothing further at this time. And I'm not going to go into the rest of this right now. I am absolutely floored by this interview, you guys. And if you hold on 1 second, I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. So I'm just floored by this police report. It's very entailed. There's a lot more to it. They do interviews with other people. And the questioning that went on here, I found quite interesting. Really interesting. And what I think about when I think about this particular interview with Colton is that they were looking at him as a possible suspect or a person of interest. At the end of that interview, for sure. But it does seem to be that because they found paraphernalia in her bedroom, that they felt somebody had to have been there that night. And that is probably where all of this crap and garbage has come from all these years, and all the speculation that Galen was not being forthright with them and telling them everything. And I don't buy that for a minute. And the way that they were trying to portray her in this interview is unbelievable to me, because Ray, I don't know. I haven't heard her speak on this relationship. I haven't heard her actually speak on it, so I don't know. But I will tell you this. If what they found out in this interview is true, and that they were just, it sounds like what the police officer was saying was, look, you were having this relationship with her. He seemed to downplay it like it really wasn't a relationship, but it's obvious that Galen must have felt it was a relationship, and he continued to say how she was controlling. And sorry, I've got a little small gnat in here, and it's driving me crazy, and I can't catch it. I just don't think it was, I don't know. It's bothersome to me. It's like they were looking at trying to place someone that would want to hurt her, or someone who would want to hurt her girls. And I am here to tell you, if for any reason Galen thought that anybody that she had a relationship with, friend, whatever, whoever, an intimate partner, whoever, she would have said, these are her babies. These are her girls. She's not going to let somebody get away with murder. She's not going to let somebody get away with it. So I just don't get why they feel that that is the only angle they have to this case. We need to know who was in that house in the months prior to. It sounds to me like she was, she was a good mom. She kept a clean house. She cooked for her girls on a very regular basis. Was she strict? She demanded that the girls, do certain things. She talks about that. She also talks about how she is not a perfect mother and a perfect woman. She owns up to her mistakes and talks about her flaws. And yet you can see when she talks about them, her deep and devoted love she had for those girls. And she's not going to not give the police the information they need. They are absolutely looking and barking up the wrong tree. And that's what I mean by this investigation. There's something wrong. Because for whatever reason, they want to blame either her behavior, her intimate sexual behavior, whatever that has nothing to do with this. And that's what makes me mad. It's almost like, what are you talking about? Why are you trying to paint her out to being this bad woman or this promiscuous woman? How do you go into a fire death scene and ask a man who lives there, how many sexual partners do you have? When was the last time you had sex? Did you like it? I mean, come on. It really pissed me off when I first read this, because I was like, this is not, to me, it just didn't make any sense at all. Why that would have been important. And like I said, they started painting a picture of her. And when this was released, this is what the narrative is. People have been out there talking about, the type of person that Galen was. You hear about how kind she was, how considerate she was. The people who interacted with her, they talk about that. But at the same time, there's an underlying racism in Flora. Don't forget that. Tracy, her father, would walk down the street and people would yell the N-word at him. And it makes me angry. Would they have treated a white mother this way? Would they have done that? I don't believe so. I don't believe for 1 minute that they would have treated a white mother the way they have treated her, and how they have tried to paint her as this less than mom. And, Galen talks about the fact that, yeah, she left her babies alone to go to work, but she was right there, down, right around the corner from them at the marathon station. They were sleeping when she left. She didn't have a lot of choices. She was home with them when the fire started. She wasn't at work. And, it's sad. And, it's really, it's pretty easy to see that it's determined that the house was set on fire, that an accelerant was used. It's not due to candles. It's not due to a faulty crock pot. It's not due to a stove. It's not due to a refrigerator. It's not due to electrical that we know of it. They're saying there was an accelerant used. And it's really hard as a single mom in this country. Don't even get me started. And they just continue to make it harder and harder and harder for single mothers. So, you know, she was doing the best she could. And she was doing great by those girls. She kept a clean house. The girls were fed. The girls were clean. The girls were thriving in school. They were all doing very well in school. So she was doing the best she could. And even Colton talks about how she demanded a bedtime every night from them. She herself had demanded a bedtime for herself because she knew she couldn't function not only as a mom, but at work if she didn't get enough sleep. So it's hard out there. And I really am anxious to find out what the heck this investigation is and where it stands today and where they're looking. If you go to the website that I put at the top of the chat, you guys, the Flora website, hold on a second and let me find it because I'll repost it. Hold on a second, guys. If you go to this website, there is so much information there. You can read all the police reports. You can read all the civil court documents. And I really, really, really highly recommend that anybody that wants to get a good foothold in what's going on in Flora, read these. Yes, Barbara, there was accelerant found. There was accelerant found on Drew Yoder on his uniform. But yes, there was, they believe that it was started by the back door on the back side of the house. Somewhere in that mud room, or that room that Colton describes as the room. It's the room that led down to that steps led down from that room to the basement. And you could also go to the outside to the backyard. But it was they call it a mud room in the Midwest. And it's basically where you come in from the outside, whether you've been working in the garden or working in the field, and you come into that room, and that's where you can take off your clothes, your work boots, your dirty shoes and boots and muddy things, so that you don't get it tracked in all over your house. Yes, the garage also had an open access as well. And Galen talks about that. If you guys watch her interviews, she did one on May 7th with Meow Zedong, and she also did one on Mother's Day. And she talks about a lot about the house, about some of the problems of the house. They don't really get into the fire. They don't discuss that, and I don't blame her. She can't probably talk about that too easily. But yeah, there's just a lot. We're going to continue to cover Flora. Just because this is Flora week doesn't mean by any chance or whatever we're going to stop talking Flora. We are putting pressure on them. It sounds to me like I saw on Coach Kev this morning, Thomas Frost was on with him, and he's been going to Flora, putting some pressure just by him being there has caused some unrest. So there's, they know, but at the same time, this is what I'm going to say to that. people always tell me they send me emails and stuff, and they're like, Kristen, be careful when you're covering these cases and what you say about these people, because there's still a killer out there. There's still somebody on the loose that did this, that's responsible. Don't you feel in danger? Well, I'm going to say this. I don't, because I'm not living there, but I will say that I think there's people that are scared. I think that there's people that know things, and that they need to speak up. Now's the time. 7 years is long enough. We don't need to wait any longer. And, people for years said that somebody knew something about Delphi. And it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't know, right? It's hard to imagine when you see some guy walking on a bridge and listening to his voice, that a town of nearly 3,000 people, somebody wouldn't know who that was, and especially since he worked right there in town at the local CVS. I think people were afraid. Yeah, well, Barbara, they were trying to find out if he had, they're thinking in their mind, by those questions that they were throwing in there, they were looking at him as a person of interest, maybe a scorned boyfriend who, she's just broken up with, and he's mad at her, and so he set this fire. That's the thought process there. But arsonists, people who commit these types of crimes, they don't just, usually start out burning down houses. They start out smaller. They set smaller type fires. They play with fire. And they do all kinds of things. Whether or not they burn cats, I don't know. But that's a horrible thought to me. But that's how mass murderers and serial killers start. We don't know why there is accelerant on Yoder. My feeling is that something happened when Drew Yoder went in that house the last time. And if you watch the dash cam video, you can hear it happening. He gets burned, and he's dying, and you can hear it on that dash cam video. And it's almost as if there was an explosion of some kind that happened when he got in that house. I don't know if that's true, but that's when we start seeing the flames coming out of the windows. And I am absolutely positive that something happened when he went back in that house. Now, if there was something placed in there that had accelerant in it and it exploded, that would explain how he got accelerant on him. But yeah, I don't think that Drew Yoder has anything to do with this fire. He almost died trying to save them. I don't believe for 1 second that he had anything to do with the setting of this fire. But there was accelerant all over on the floor. And so, that could have been, if he fell down, and which we know he did, that's how he could have gotten it on him as well. And they, I don't know, they really put their lives on the line that night. I told you guys, and I'm gonna do this, and then I want to get out of here. I told you at the very beginning that I wanted to show you 2 videos that True Crime Maria did, and if you hang on a second, I am going to pull them up here. Just give me one quick moment here. I want to get her channel pulled up. We're going to watch 2 videos. We're going to watch, the first one that we're going to watch is 3 minutes and 55 seconds. The last one is 6 minutes and 44. So just give me a moment to get these pulled up for us. And I want you guys to watch these. I think it's extremely important. These videos were done about the origin of the photo of Abby walking on the Monon High Bridge. And it's important. It's important that we hear this. Let's see. All right, guys, here we go. Here we go.
Hey guys, it's been a while since I've made a video, but there's a lot of hullabaloo right now about the origins of the last known photo of Abigail Williams walking on the Monon High Bridge. On February 13th, 2017, Liberty German and Abigail Williams were reported missing when they didn't show up to their designated pickup spot at the historic trails in Delphi. That evening, friends of the girls helped with search efforts by screenshotting and sharing the last known Snapchat story that Libby sent out earlier that day. It was an image of Abby walking across High Bridge. Snapchat stories do not show an exact time, but they do show an estimation of how much time has passed since uploaded to the user's story. I'm hoping to help clear up some of the confusion on this, so I'd like to show an interview with Erica Gibson, a dear friend of the girls, and one of the kids who screenshotted that Snapchat story to help with locating them.
Abby and Libby posted pictures to Snapchat and seemed to be having a good time. The Snapchat app erases pictures soon after they're viewed by friends, but at least one friend, Erica, took a screenshot on her phone. A quick, easy way to hack the app.
It was a happy photo. At first, it was them having a fun day, and I didn't think anything bad of it.
As we can see in Erica's screenshot, the Snapchat was sent out about 7 hours before the screenshot was taken. Erica had shared that she took the screenshot around 9 p.m., which would line up with the time that the girls were on the bridge. Claims that this image was photoshopped have led followers of this case to implicate many innocent people, including family members who are also victims and survivors of this heinous double murder of 2 teen girls. Not only that, it may implicate another teen girl who openly and bravely shared with us how she retrieved this image. To claim it was photoshopped is to claim that this brave young lady is lying to us all, and worst case, that she may be somehow involved. Conspiracy theories left unchecked can be harmful to people and even to entire groups of people, like friends and family of murder victims. When making a claim, one should support that claim with empirical evidence, and that evidence should align with the claim by the use of sound logic. So that's all I've got for you today. I am working on a couple videos that I hope to get out soon. One is about Richard Allen and what we know thus far, and I'm also working on another video for an MMIW case. So I do hope to get those out to you guys soon. I hope everyone is doing well and has a good weekend. And of course, let's all try to remember to consider logic as well as ethics and compassion when we're following and covering these true crime cases.
Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, so I've gotten feedback on my last video about this topic, and the claim being made now is that this image was supposedly photoshopped prior to the murders and sent out by the killer or killers from Libby's phone. So I wanted to make a rebuttal to that, but I also wanted to make a small correction to the last video anyways, so I'm going to address that first and then get into my response. So it was actually a friend of the girls named Kyle who'd shared out the screenshot the night the girls went missing. Erica had also just screenshotted and later did that interview with HLN. So that's just another person who did receive that Snapchat story from Libby's account, but that's only relevant for those who were saying it was photoshopped after the fact. Others are saying it was allegedly photoshopped prior to the murders, and I was asked to provide empirical evidence that Libby sent out that snap herself, and while the burden of proof is on the people making the Photoshop claim, here's the evidence that she sent out the snap. Libby still had her phone on her at the southeast end of the bridge. She used it to take the video, so she very clearly and obviously still had her phone at that point. It's kind of logistically impossible that anyone else sent out that snap before then. And family was allowed to see more of the video and have confirmed that it was Libby taking it with Abby nearby in the frame as Bridge Guy was approaching. We can even barely see Abby enter the frame at the left edge when watching the zoomed-in video. Some are claiming Libby didn't take this video, that it was set up by the killer or killers, and that's suggesting that someone complicit in the crime was willing to be filmed on one of the victim's phones and left at the crime scene, and to me, that's just absurd. Now, a lot of people on this Photoshop theory are using it to accuse the Patty family and Kelsey, but Anna Williams also discussed seeing this footage, so are you all going to attack Anna now too? The single mother who lost her only child to murder? Do y'all think she's in on this too? Like, we get it. You don't like the Pattys. You don't like Kelsey. Why? I don't have the slightest idea, but regardless of your personal opinion, they did not murder the girls. The conspiracy theories about the family don't even make sense. They never have. They never will. I really don't care if you like them or not, but they didn't commit these murders, nor did they have anything to do with them. We know that a witness saw the girls as they were about to get on the bridge. We know the snap was sent out from the northwest end of the bridge around 2 p.m. And we know that the video was taken at the southeast end at 2:13, where Bridge Guy directed the girls down the hill and the crime commenced. So, again, it's pretty much an impossibility that someone else had her phone when the snap was uploaded to her story. Also, digital forensics experts would be able to determine when the snap was actually sent out, and we know they were able to determine the time the video was taken. And don't forget, the video was taken by Libby, who still had her phone, as confirmed by both law enforcement and family members who were able to see more than us. People are claiming she didn't carry out this brave and heroic act. And really, the only way we're going to actually prove or disprove that is after the trial if the full video is released under the Freedom of Information Act. It is my personal belief that they've got the right guy in custody. When you put all the evidence together, it's pretty damning. Like his own admission of being there at the corresponding times, where he parked, what he wore, witness accounts, his voice, his body, his walk, his mannerisms, his bullet, his gun, and who knows what else they collected at his home that we don't even know about yet. And I'm sure there's going to be people commenting on this video with some craziness about how law enforcement's in on it and the digital forensics have all been faked and it's all some huge conspiracy and yada yada. And there's really no way to respond to that. So I challenge those who are making this claim to get an actual graphics expert, someone experienced with Photoshop who's willing to identify themselves and their credentials to show this community exactly why they think it's faked, like the actual elements of the photo that suggest it and exactly how a professional would make that determination. Some say that her feet don't appear to be on the cross ties, but I think they do. The shadows all line up just right to me, so if anyone out there is willing to share their credentials and speak on this photo, please do. And again, when it boils down to it, the burden of proof is on the person making the claim, and I just don't feel that anyone has proven that this image was photoshopped. So that's all for this one. Hope everyone's doing well and staying safe.
Maria, thank you so much for both of those. What tremendous work. It's why we still need your voice in this community, because it's a level-headed one that thinks logically and critically when examining the evidence that we have that's known to us. And I appreciate you putting it out there quickly to talk about that when it started happening. And what a great rebuttal to all of the people that are pushing that narrative, because I agree with you. I do not believe that that photo has been photoshopped. And there is a way to determine if it has. The metadata they would have been able to gather would tell them. And Gray Hughes did an amazing job with that photo to try to debunk those claims. And you guys can go watch his video on it. But yeah, he, in the very beginning of this case, he talked about that and the shadows and all of it. So anyway, I just felt that that had to be something that I put out and showed on my channel. I wanted more people to see it and to be able to know that there's a reason that we don't push those kinds of narratives. So I thought she did an outstanding job at explaining it. And you can't do a video and claim something that's going to create so much controversy and not show your source data for why you feel that way. I just, to me, that screams the conspiracy theory kind of thing. And I'm not into conspiracy theory. I'm just not. So, anyway, thank you, Maria, my dear, so much. Thank you, you guys, for all sticking around tonight for Flora. We have so much work yet to do with Flora, but I think people are starting to get interested in the case. If you thought that there were tentacles with Delphi, trust me, there are far more tentacles with this case and the Flora girls. And there is corruption here. They are trying to cover something up, and I don't know why or what it is or why they would be doing that, but I don't feel that they're working this case. And we're going on 7 years. And it's time that we put the pressure on, and the people of Flora need to stand up and put the pressure on law enforcement to get this case solved. So thank you, guys. I appreciate all of you. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Please be safe out there. If you can, please donate to the Flora Fund. It's hold on a second and I'll put this up on screen. You don't, like I said, you can give money or you can buy a t-shirt, but please, 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 if you can give to the Angel fundraiser for the girls, please do. Galen, it could really help her, and God knows she needs it. She's still hurting desperately from all of this. And to my Aries Dawn, to my new member, thank you so much for joining. I so appreciate you. To all of my members, I appreciate all of you, and to all my subscribers. To anybody watching the replay, thank you for being here. You are appreciated. Good night, everybody, and have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe out there.